Could we have any upsets in Week 12 in the Sun Belt? It's Locked On Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sun Belt, your teams every day. I want to thank you for making us the #1 sports podcast network out there. We are honored and thrilled to be part of the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, we'll talk about potential upsets. We sort of have this group, sort of a littering of letdown games and trap games. All right, staying hot late is important and not mailing it in. So we'll talk about all of those. So we could be redundant in some of these discussions because let's go over. We've gone over a little bit the week 13. We won't go over Old Dominion and Troy. We'll do a little bit of a Friday morning recap with that one real quickly. So the trap games and the letdown games are obviously going to be Southern Miss taking on Texas State. All right, you can't be any higher than that. Go into Jonesboro, force 6 turnovers, escape with a victory, and you are on top of the West. All right. Meanwhile, Texas State can't buy a win. All right. They're throwing punches, and they got some defensive line guys suspended, and they have not won a football game in over a month. Right. They are on a 5-game losing streak. They're 0-5 in the Sun Belt. They have lost 6 out of their last 7 with their only win against Nichols. They lost Arizona State, beat Nichols, and have not won a game since. All right. So that's got letdown written all over it because the thing is, outside of that JMU game, Texas State has given each one of these games, 14 points in 4 losses? That's not a lot. All right. Now, the JMU game, they got blown out in the second half. All right, so on the other side of that, you have Arkansas State. We've been over that. They don't play again until Thursday, all right? But you have JMU taking on App State, all right? JMU with a big win over Marshall. App State has struggled, so you would not think it could be a little bit of a letdown game, but the game is sold out. App State has not played very well. This would be a huge surprise. JMU is 21.5-point favorite. You do have Marshall, though, okay? So Marshall has gone from what was a juggernaut, beating Old Dominion and beating Texas State in double overtime to having now lost 2 straight, losing to Coastal in a blowout with all those turnovers, and then having opportunities to beat James Madison and did not do it. So you could see them, although they got to be a little bit desperate to try and get to a bowl game, and they need 2 wins out of their last 3 to get to that situation. And Georgia State's not very good, let's be honest. Georgia State's just not a very good football team. This game is in Atlanta. Georgia State's going to be trying, all right? They're trying to ruin some seasons. And so those are kind of the 3 letdown games on the slate. You do have Coastal Carolina against Georgia Southern. Is that kind of a trap game? Because they finish up with South Carolina and JMU. So a little bit of a trap game. Kind of the thing is Georgia Southern's playing better all of a sudden. But is Coastal even favored in this one? Georgia Southern's actually favored in this one. That's kind of surprising. That's really surprising. And then you have Monroe in South Alabama. I hate to say it, and I haven't seen anything. I don't know anything. I hope it's not the case. But if South Alabama comes up short in this one, you kind of feel like Mitch Boyd's job is on the line. I hope not. I know, and I don't think Brian Vincent is going anywhere either. They have not had the ULM has not had the season that they were hoping for sure. I don't know if that has anything to do with Brian Vincent trying to be interim AD or whatever the case is, but they have not taken that next step that we had seen from last year and trying for them to get bowl eligible is what we're trying to do. And so those are the ball games. And honestly, if you had to pick an upset, I don't think it's going to happen. All right. But that Southern Miss would be ripe for one. Again, I don't think it's going to happen. And the thing is, the only thing I have on that is that Texas State has played tough, and that goes to the end of it, not mailing it in. All right. So we'll talk about that as well. And then maybe I just think Georgia State has played so poorly. If you look at Georgia State's losses compared to Texas State's losses, they're oh so different. I mean, Georgia State has just been, for the most part, not competitive. Lost to App State 41-20. They lost to Georgia Southern 41-24. Now, that was a good ball game into the fourth. They were competitive with South Alabama, losing 38-31, a couple of turnovers late. But, I mean, they lost to Coastal 40-27, but that game was 40-14. They really have not been all that competitive. James Madison was 14-7, and that I'm not even sure how competitive they were in the second half in that ball game offensively. So they've just been bad. All right. And so it would be, but that's what a letdown game is all about. Letting a bad team beat you. And as they say, you kind of let the game before beat you twice because you're consumed with that. That's why I think it's such a big deal that Arkansas State, despite the Cajuns not going to have any of their secondary available, that Arkansas State gets to lick their chops a little bit, lick their wounds, not lick their chops, lick their wounds, and have a couple extra days, almost half a week, or not almost. They get the 12 days, so they get opportunity to kind of cleanse themselves, I think is the right word, of that loss, whereas they may not have been able to put it behind them, Wednesday and Thursday, trying to get ready for the Cajuns on Friday. Now, at the same time, gives the Cajuns a little bit extra time to see who's going to fill in those roles. Tyree Skipper, one of the best safeties in the conference, is not playing for the rest of the season. So that's where we are with that. All right. What do you guys think? Again, the potential upset is Southern Miss getting beat. I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. I would take Southern Miss. It's not that big of a spread. That's the other thing, right? That's kind of the other surprising thing. That tells you, Southern Miss is favored by 3.5 points. That tells you exactly what I'm talking about. More so not upset, but that Texas State is tough. Now, I didn't think that Texas State should have been favored against the Cajuns just based on their record, not being able to win a ball game. And Cajuns were playing at home, and the Cajuns have found their offense. Now, there's only one game going into that. But I didn't think they should be favored. Whether you thought Texas State could win or not, I didn't think Texas State should have been favored. Did hit a parlay because of, among other things, that ball game. Again, I don't think Southern Miss is going to get upset, but that would be the one ripe one to pick. It's disappointing if Georgia State beats Marshall, but obviously that doesn't mean quite as much as if Southern Miss gets knocked off. Again, just Texas State is tougher than they would appear, although their defense is god-awful. They have an awful defense, an incredibly explosive offense, but an awful defense. That's not great, Bob. All right, we'll shift gears. We'll talk about staying hot late. We do have some teams, among others, besides the divisional leaders, JMU and Southern Miss, other teams trying to stay hot late into the season. We'll do that when we come back after I tell you about DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP. Who delivered? Powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. I'm not giving it to a team. I'm not giving it to a person. I'm giving it to the Southern Miss defense. They came up big when it mattered most. Not only did they force a grand total of 6 turnovers, they picked off Jalen Rayner in the end zone to preserve a victory and what would have been a brutal loss. And if you've been watching week after week, the performance wasn't a fluke or even lucky. Southern Miss defense is on a streak. And just like Southern Miss's defense delivered for the Golden Eagles fans, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right, talk about staying hot late. Right now, other than the two divisional winners, the hottest team, I should say leaders, is Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina has won 4 in a row, right? JMU, what, they up to 7 in a row? Wasn't, yeah, they've 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Louisville was their second game of the year, and Southern Miss has to be up to 5 in a row too. So 5 in a row. Okay. So outside of that, JMU, or I should say Coastal Carolina, has won 4 in a row. I think they're going to beat Georgia Southern. Technically, I guess that's an upset, but I think Coastal Carolina is a better team than Georgia Southern. All right. That's what I think. Although Georgia Southern played pretty well against App State early on in that ball game. App State did not play very well, especially offensively, against not such a great defense. But Coastal Carolina staying hot late. I guess this really can't be a trap game because you kind of need it if you want to win the Sun Belt Conference, right? You can't look ahead when you need to beat Georgia Southern. Forget about South Carolina to set up your date with JMU. Although every time someone's about to play JMU, they lose. Seems that way. ODU lost. Marshall lost. App State just lost. Now, we're not going to count the South Carolina game as a loss because it's South Carolina. Although Coastal wins this ball game, they're going to go in winners of 5 in a row against, the background of Shane Beamer. Is he going to Vatech? Lots going on down there in Columbia. So there's a lot, you could take advantage of. All right. But it is impressive. They're trying to stay hot late. Arkansas State had gotten hot until Southern Miss cooled them off. Cajuns have all of a sudden won 2 in a row, trying to become bowl eligible. We'll have their work cut out for them against the said Red Wolves. And it will be difficult because the Cajun secondary is depleted, at least for 1 week, if not for the rest of the season. So lots of opportunities. Let's see who else is staying hot. Has Georgia Southern gotten a little hot? They've won 2 out of 3. So they beat Georgia State with a good fourth quarter. They let that Arkansas State game fade away, and they hung on to beat App State. Is that considered hot? Certainly as hot as Georgia Southern's been. They did win 2 in a row, Jack State and Maine. Still lost 3 out of their last 5. But they've won 2 out of their last 3. I guess we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. That is, in this case, staying hot late. Who else? I mean, because South Alabama they had the 1 win, but then they lost to the Cajuns. Old Dominion is trying to stay hot late. Troy is trying to stay hot late. We'll go over that game on Friday. Obviously, App State's just trying to turn the ball game, trying to turn the season around. They're on the way to losing their 4th in a row. They're a 3-touchdown underdog to James Madison in Harrisonburg, and they're going to go from 4-2 to 4-6. Yeah, not great, Bob. And as we mentioned, Coastal Carolina is hot. Obviously, Southern Miss is hot. I think I tweeted out somebody who doesn't necessarily needs to get tweeted out. We'll see. You see something on Twitter, you do have to be careful, and I need to be more responsible for that. Probably should erase that tweet, but some people are commenting on it. You guys can look. You guys can find it. I'm not going to take it down. Probably should. But it's not like these rumors are not out there. All right. Although they may be gone with the way the season has gone. All right. Interesting to say the least. But But Texas State just trying to get any kind of win, right? Just scratching and clawing. And if you watch that Cajuns game last week, they would not go away. They were getting blown out. They were losing by more in the second half, 22, than they were at halftime, which was 18. And yet they clawed their way back into the ball game, needing one stop, and could not get it. All right. So we'll see what happens. All right. Again, technically, Coastal Carolina is an upset. I don't really think so. Obviously, Georgia State to me would be a major upset over Marshall. You do have South Alabama playing Monroe. I mean, should South Alabama be favored by 5.5 over anybody? Really? That's a little interesting. No. Hopefully that does work out. Obviously, you have Thursday night's ball game on national TV, and that turns out to be it this week. Are there games? There's going to be games next week, right? Cajuns and Arkansas State got to be playing on national TV. That's a Thursday ball game. We'll see where that James Madison Washington State game could be. That could end up being. Could game day go to Harrisonburg for that ball game? And again, you got that whole Coastal Carolina's playing South Carolina on SEC Network. And then you have that whole ridiculous thing on game day where some alumni member from Washington State has been having that flag there for the last 20 years, something along those lines, right? And so now they're actually playing Washington State. It would be fun to watch that. If that was the case. So we shall see. It does say it's on ESPN Plus now, but it also says to be determined. So we'll see. All right, let's take a time out. We'll talk about not only staying hot late, but not mailing it in. And sometimes that's even more impressive. We'll do that right after I tell you about FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on from everything who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's talk about teams not mailing it in. And obviously, Texas State is at the top of that list. Okay. Haven't won a ball game since they beat Nichols. But again, we can go over it again. Outside of that JMU game where they did get blown out, 52-20. I think the 4 other ball games are by combined 14 points. They lost to Arkansas State by 1. They lost by Troy to 7. That's 8. They lost to Marshall by 3. That's 11. And they lost to the Cajuns by 3. That's 14. All right. They're not mailing it in. Regardless of what people think, the players are not talking or looking at the Pac-12 for next year. A lot of those guys aren't going to be there next year. They're worried about this season. They're not mailing it in. They lost their composure against the Cajuns. We don't want to see that, but they're not mailing it in. You know who else is not mailing it in? Is South Alabama. All right. They have not had the kind of season that they were hoping for, especially with all of the turnover. But they had lost 6 in a row, and they played so well, almost beat Tulane, held their own against Auburn, but then got blown out at home by Coastal, lost to a good North Texas team, played extremely well against Troy, really blew it against Arkansas State. That should have been a win, right? And then they hang in there against Georgia State, get 2 turnovers and hang on to that one, and then battle their way back against the Cajuns. They were down 31-7, and the Cajuns had a goal line stand, or else it would have been anywhere from 30-20 28 or 31-28 or 31-30. Any one of those it could have been, depending if they get the 2 or kick it or whatever the case may be. And so we haven't seen South Alabama mail it in. No, not at all. And so that's impressive. I don't even know we have seen Georgia State mail it in. As I mentioned, I don't think they've been overall competitive, very much so. But Georgia Southern was a good ball game for 3 quarters. All right. South Alabama ball game was a good ball game for most of the game. And Coastal Carolina was not. They were down 40-14. So, all right. So in some of these games, they have not been very competitive. And so, but I don't think they're mailing it in. And sometimes that's easier said than done. All right. I don't know if any coaches are on the hot seat, right? Major Applewhite, Clay Helton, Del McGee. I don't think Brian Vincent is going anywhere. So I'm not sure. Now, on the other side of things, you may get Bob Chesney may go get a job, right? Charles Huff may go get a job. I'm not sure if anybody else is getting a job, but those would be at the top of the list. I mean, maybe G.J. Kinney is getting a job. Obviously, he's not having a good year this year, so it's tough to get fans excited about a guy who can't win a game in the Sun Belt. But again, players like playing for their coaches, right? Who did I see here in Kentucky? All right. They like Mark Stoops. They're trying to stay hot. I think they've won a couple in a row for Kentucky. They don't want him to lose their job. Now, there's other times that coaches, they don't like the coach, and maybe they do mail it in. In this case, though, they in Kentucky's case, they are not mailing it in. They've had a couple of good ball games. Last week was one of their better ball games that they've had all season long. So I do appreciate the guys who are doing that. Now, a little bit different these days than it used to be. Like in the NFL, you can't mail it in because you're not only auditioning for your team, but you're auditioning for every team. Right? That's what you're putting at, whatever you're putting on tape. Now that's what college football is all about. Rightly or wrongly, that's what it's about, because people are going to try and get picked up and transfer and get some NIL money. Now, if Nico's used to get 7 figures, get 7 million, Nussmeier's getting 3 million, I'm just for the guy who's like, boy, if I could get 50 grand or 100 grand, I think we've mentioned this numerous times, right? These guys can go, I don't like jumping from school to school, but if you work it right, you could end up getting a law degree and having your house paid for. You don't even need the down payment. You just pay for the house and you're all set. And we're not talking about guys that are getting 6 or 7 figures. You could just, if you're getting 25 or 50 grand a year, put that away. And all of a sudden, at the end of law school, first of all, at the end of law school, you're going to get a 6-figure a year job. But now, also maybe with that money, also you don't have any law school loans because the school's paying for it. So you could be in good shape. And so that's what this is all about. It's just a little bit more NIL money and putting good stuff on tape, showing the effort, making sure you're not mailing it in. And tough to do that in football, right? That's how you get hurt. If you're loafing it a little bit, you're going to get hurt, and you can't really do that. You got to give your all. And I do think we have a bunch of teams, despite their record, giving it their all, and despite what the outcome may or may not look like. All right, let's see what we got in basketball on a Thursday night. I'm not sure if we do. South Alabama, by the way, is a sneaky 4-0. They beat Central Michigan 66-64. I feel like that was a day game, and that was in St. Petersburg, Florida. And all of a sudden, South Alabama is 4-0. They're 2-0 against the MAC, by the way. Georgia State with a 90-56 win over Fort Valley State. All right. Grambling takes down Southern Miss 75-70. Southern Miss not bouncing back from that close loss to South Carolina. And Houston Christian beats Monroe 72-61. On Friday, do we have some games? Georgia Southern hosting Johnson C. Smith. McNeese hosting the Cajuns. That's not quite as big as it was when Will Wade was there. Jacksonville State is hosting Coastal Carolina. And Troy is at Loyola Marymount. Troy 3-0. Loyola Marymount is 4-0. Saturday, still not a full slate. South Alabama is at Coppin State. Coppin State 0-4. Marshall's at Virginia. Both teams 3-0. Texas State hosting Texas Southern. Old Dominion is at GW, George Washington. James Madison heading north, taking on Long Island University. And Arkansas State taking on Christian Brothers. Some of these sound like high schools that they're playing. Sunday, App State is at Dartmouth. And Troy is at Cal State Northridge. All right, so we will try and recap all of that coming up on, Monday, as the case may be. So still did not see, working all day, working late tonight. So did not see if the ESPN Google thing has been taken care of. ESPN YouTube. Andrew Marchand of the Athletic / New York Times thought he wrote that they were getting closer, whatever that means. All right. But it is not great that they've been out. This is going to be week 3 if they miss these college football games. Not great. Although I am working both Saturday and Sunday. So, and most of the games for us in the Sun Belt are on Plus. So I can watch those later on. If it's actually on one of the networks, ESPNU, ESPNU, or ESPN2, I can't watch it. I can't even watch the replay. No, it's not great. It's not great. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. We had another great week. We continue to grow. We're so close to 2,700 subscribers. See if you can find some friends. Want to talk us in Sunbelt. Remember, less than 100 days until baseball season starts. My goodness. And we have some good teams once again in the Sun Belt. Could be a very, very fun May and June. All right. Again, have a great weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in. You've been watching Locked On Sun Belt, your teams every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in America. I'm Dave Schultz. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll talk to you again on Monday.